go from, I think it was, wherever he was going to go to Dallas, and then Toronto, and then Detroit. So we had, it was a week, 10 days before Prabhupada was supposed to come. So, all the devotees are cleaning and everything we should have done all year long. We were doing it the last minute. And there was the chance, which Prabhupada was successful at, of purchasing that Devasadan Mandir, that beautiful temple. He wanted it very much, actually, once he saw it. So, all of a sudden, the opportunity arose to buy it. And Prabhupada came immediately. So instead of having 10 days, all of a sudden we had 2 days. So literally none of the devotees, not practically none of the devotees had slept. If they'd slept, maybe took a little nap a few minutes, but So the only time they really sat down and relaxed was the first morning Prabhupada gave class. And everybody fell asleep. There was like 7 sannyasis, temple presidents from everywhere east of the Mississippi. There was, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 Radha Damodar buses full of brahmacharis. And everybody was out cold, I would have been asleep, but I was working in the kitchen. I was serving in the kitchen. So I had something in the oven and something. So I had a few minutes. So I just wanted to see Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana. So I went up and peeked around the corner just to see Srila Prabhupada sitting there. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita had just come out. So instead of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada was reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he was talking about Lord Chaitanya's mercy, causeless mercy. And he was defining causeless mercy. And he said it's, as you know, there's no cause. And Prabhupada said it's like if you're walking down the street and you just find a pile of gold. Or someone comes up to you and says, take, and just starts giving you money. There's no cause, it's just causeless mercy. And then Prabhupada said, in the same way, this movement is going on by the mercy of Krishna alone. And then he looked over his glasses like this at all the devotees asleep. And he said quietly into the mic, that is a fact. It was full of love and grandfatherly resignation, it was just but it's a fact. This movement is going on by the mercy of Krishna. The sincere endeavor of the devotees is there, no doubt about it. But ultimately, it's Krishna's causeless mercy. So we are on the 2nd chapter, text 41, correcto? Why can't I read a word of this? Is it that I can't read a word of this? Did I bring the wrong glasses? Hold on. Welcome. You'll find out in soon enough, young men and young ladies. You're laughing now, but what is it? The one cow patty is drying on the wall, the other one's being tossed into the fire, and the one being on the wall is laughing at the one being tossed. It says, ha, 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 And what does the one cow patty being tossed in the fire say? Do you know? He says, you're next. So Prabhu's, you're next. Time and tide wait for no one. There we go. Okay, let's try it again. So we are on the 2nd chapter. Do we chant the Sanskrit? What is our system? You all have Gitas? Because I'm thinking of the time. Is it quarter? Wow. Huh? Yeah, that's cool. In their language? That's right. Okay. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Eka Iha Kurunandana Bahushakai Hi Ananta Cha Buddhaya Avyasayinam Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana Bahusakahi Anantascha Buddhayo vyavasayinam vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha Buddhayo vyavasayinam vyavasatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha Buddhayo vyavasayinam vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha Buddhayo vyavasayinam vyavasayatmika buddhir ekehe kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha Buddhayo vyavasayinam. Vaishnavis vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha Buddhayo vyavasayinam. One more. Vaishnavi. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha Buddhayo vyavasayinam. Vyavasayatmika, resolute in Krishna consciousness. Buddhi, intelligence. Eka, only one. Iha, in this world. Kurunandana, beloved child of the Kurus. Bahusaka, having various branches. He, indeed. Ananta, unlimited. Cha, also. Buddhaya, intelligence. Avayasayinam, of those who are not in Krishna consciousness. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. I'll say, you say. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmika intelligence. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22 states, Shraddha Shabde Vishasha Kabe Sudrida Nischaya Krishna Bhakti Kale Sarvakarma Kritaya. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world, with the obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good or bad. Do you mind if we shut that door? Is that going to be uncomfortable for them? It's a little cold. Okay, at least for me. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. Just one. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. Hard to believe, but true. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. That state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Savamiti Sa Mahatma Sadurlabha. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva or Krishna is the root of all manifested causes. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches, so by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna. And one should accept the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows: Yasya prasad bhagavata prasada, yasya prasada nagati gatopi, dayam stuvam stasya triyasti sandhyam, bande goroshri charanaravinda. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day, and offer my respectful obeisance unto him, my spiritual master. End quote. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body. Not theoretical, but practically. When there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. Om Gena Tamarandasya Gyana Gena Salakaya Jokshusha Militam Gena Tazare Shi Gurave Namaha. Now, sometimes a false dynamic is presented that you Hare Krishna people, religious people, people interested in spiritual life, you are sentimental and driven by faith. But I am a practical man. I only believe in what I can prove, what I can smell, taste, touch, like that. You have some sentimental leap of faith, but I'm a realist. But the fact of the matter is that is a gigantic bluff. Everybody has faith in something. Faith is the operating principle of every act in this world. As Prabhupada pointed out to that Professor Katha, you have faith in Lenin, we have faith in Krishna. They have faith in Darwin. Ultimately, there's certain givens. Even in mathematics, there are axiomatic truths that you just start, a priori, you just start with. That's your axiomatic, your cause of all causes, you cannot go beyond. They have faith in the laws of physics, which are full of faults, all kinds of anomalies. Every time I pick up my foot and put it down, I have some faith in the law of gravity. Here's the classic. They say, we have faith, Krishna says, Sarvakara Nikaranam, he's the cause of all causes. So that's an act of faith on one hand. It's a logical conclusion. Wherever you see order, pattern, symmetry, design, there's intelligence behind it. Rather, the absence of intelligence is the cause of chaos. So it's logical to conclude that wherever there's order, pattern, symmetry, design, which this world profoundly manifests, there has to be intelligence. Now, what the nature of that intelligence is, that's another thing. But there has to be intelligence. That's a logical conclusion, but still, it's an act of faith. They believe in a singularity. You know what a singularity is? A tiny spark of matter. It's so small, it's infinitely small, infinitely hot. It's a point. They're all over the place. There's all kinds of points. This world full of points. And somehow or other, poof, out of one, literally this, who's the guy? I forget his name, the big, I know who I'm talking about. I'll ask you when I need help. No, I appreciate it. It's not Hawkins. It's a guy at MIT. And he says, the fact is that the universe, the creation as we know it, is the ultimate free lunch. He also says, give us, because they say, of course it's full of speculation, that they can do the math all the way back to some nanosecond before the singularity, everything came out, up to that. They can't figure out the math. That is all full of speculation, But even that point, And they literally said, give us one free miracle and we'll explain the rest. How everything came from nothing. Once everything came from nothing, okay, then we can explain how it unfolded. But the actual cause and source of that act, they cannot explain. So they have faith in a singularity, which is completely irrational. We don't experience that anywhere. And we have faith that Krishna is the cause of all causes, which is frankly quite logical, as I said. Still, it's not a question of who believes fantastic stories. We believe fantastic stories. We theists. We shouldn't run away from it. I mean, Lord Brahma folds his hand and says, people say they know something, but, is he standing in front of Krishna as a small cowherd boy with he's got some yogurt and fruit dripping through his fingers, and he's but as for me, I don't understand how it's coming. I just surrender to you, and that's Lord Brahma. So, everyone has faith. Everyone believes fantastic stories. I mean, that everything evolved from chemicals. I mean, here's a fantastic, suppose I could do this. Om, and this bottle floated. Whatever else I say in this Bhagavatam, in this Gita class, that's what you're going to remember. You're going to say, hey, this Puttaraj Swami floated a bottle of water, No strings attached. You think, wow, that was pretty far out, And if anywhere else in India, they say, oh, this is Bhagavan, they'd fold their hands and offer all respects, I'd get some dakshin out of it. Pay for my airfare. And my old friend who I miss dearly, Sadaputa Prabhu, do the numbers. It rained in San Diego. It rained in Southern California, which is a rare event in Southern California. It rained a 1/16 of an inch. They don't even measure here, and 1/16 of an inch is like inconsequential, but it's a big deal in Southern California. So he figured out, and there's so many counties or districts. There's San Diego County, LA County, Orange County, Riverside County, San Bernardino, so many counties where it rained, and it rained a 1/16 of an inch. But let's be conservative. He just took San Diego County. The square miles, so you can figure out the surface area. He figured out the surface area and how much water it would take to cover the 1/16 of an inch. So many gallons, right? You can figure. He figured it out. And a gallon has a fixed weight, isn't it? What is it? 9 pounds? Now I need help. Anyone know? 9 pounds. It's something, you can Google it when you get home. It's 9 pounds or whatever it is, something like that. It's not much more than that. So if you know how much water, how many gallons, how much a gallon weighs, you can figure out how much the weight of that water was. It fell in only a portion of San Diego County. And it's billions, with a B, billions and billions of tons of water. And it is simply floating in the sky. Krishna, Prabhupada, one man said, show us God. Prabhupada said, that's not the question. The question is, why can't you see God? The mystic power of God is all around us if you just open your eyes, think about it. So it's a big deal. I'm Bhagavan if I could float this little bottle of water. But what about the unseen hand that's floating billions of tons of water at every moment and distributing it wherever you want? There's a whole system for distribution. So we have Everybody believes amazing stories. That's my point. The materialist, the mechanistic, reductionist scientist, he believes a dark matter. You know what dark matter is? Go home and Google it. I couldn't make this stuff up if I wanted to. 96% of the matter in the universe, they don't know where it is. They can't see it. The only reason they postulate that it agrees, that it exists, is because they say that there's got to be, if there wasn't the right, mass creates gravity, so they say we know it's all around, but the mass creates gravity. And if you don't have sufficient gravity, everything would just spin out. And if you have too much, it would all implode. So you've got to have the right amount of gravity, mass, to create the right amount of gravitational pulls to hold the creation together. Otherwise, it just spin out or implode. The problem is they don't know where the mass is. 96% of the existence of creation, they don't know where it is, so they call it dark matter. I'm not making it up. Go home and Google it. I guarantee you. Suppose Dharmatma Prabhu comes to Badrinarayan's convenience store. Best and cheapest, And he buys a 10 rupee item and gives me a 100 rupee note. I say, thank you very much, Jai Prabhu. He says, Maharaj, where's my change? I need it for the service of Radha Krishna Balaram, I say, no, it's there. It's just dark rupees. You can't see them. Will you accept that? If your checkbook doesn't balance, if it's off by, whatever that is, 90% inaccurate, well, the bank, no, it's there. It's just you can't see it. No one would accept that in their practical life, but I'm not making it up. Dark matter, singularities, the Big Bang. There's a Christian joke. It's okay. I'm looking at the time, but it goes like this. So the materialist says to God, we don't need you anymore. Anything you can do, we can duplicate. Prabhupada points out, the universe is just like a giant watch. You wind it up. If you know the laws of physics, you know how it works. You can, Of course, Prabhupada immediately points out, fine, take two watches, a male and a female watch, put them alone in a closet, come back later, and will you have baby watches? Yeah? Can you do that? No. So, it's totally bogus. But anyway, it's just a wind-up machine. We know the laws. We can do everything. We don't really need you hanging around, ladling us with fear and guilt and sin. Just, take a hike. We got it. We got it here. So God, being the kind of father, says, "Oh, okay. I got things to do. I have my whole spiritual world, and this is only 1/4 of the creation. So, but just before I let you go, I want to make sure, before I hand over the wheel, I want to make sure you guys can actually drive the car." Materialist says, okay. So God, according to Christian theology, and it's metaphor, it's allegorical, but anyway, he gathered together earth and he breathed life into it. So that's how God created life, they say in the Christian Bible. So God said, so you do it, Scientist says, okay, no problem. He starts to push together some dirt. God says, hang on a minute, get your own dirt. Follow? So we believe in fantastic stories. They believe in fantastic stories. It's not a question of believing fantastic stories. It's a question of which fantastic story you believe. And the Vedic foundation, Jiva Goswami in the Tat Sandarbha, the beginning of the Tat Sandarbha, it's profound. How do you know what you... It's the first question to ask. How do you know what you know? Okay, I'm sitting here. I'm conscious. I'm assuming that you're conscious, but I really don't know. You could be a figment of my imagination, right? You could be a dream, and I'm dreaming about all of you. So where do I begin? Like in Descartes, he says, "I think, therefore I am," and that's the beginning. They say it's the cornerstone of modern philosophy. Okay, I am conscious. Jiva Goswami completely reduces it back to that. Okay, you're conscious. Now, how do you know what you know? And he explains all the different kinds of pramana. and which is the best pramana, ultimately comes down to the Vedic literature and all the reasons why ultimately it has to be descending knowledge. You're never going to get it by ascending knowledge. So what type of descending knowledge? You come to the Vedas. Why the Vedas? And you come ultimately to the Bhagavatam. Why the Bhagavatam? And it ultimately, he makes the foundation. But nothing is an assumption. There's no blind faith sentimental assumption in Jiva Goswami's presentation of the Tatsandarbha. It begins from the same cornerstone principle. Well, I know I'm here. I don't know how long. I don't know what my consciousness consists of. I don't know if it's just brain function. I don't know if you're all, but I know that I'm conscious. He begins at that same point. So we have a profound reasons why we have faith, and we should not run away from it. They have faith, we have faith. Now let's discuss. We believe amazing stories, they believe amazing stories. Now let's talk about which set of amazing stories makes sense. So Prabhupada's talking about belief in something sublime. Okay, now I wanted to go in a different direction, in an additional direction, I should say. And I'm looking at the time factor. This singular faith that's being described here, that by service to Krishna, everything will be fulfilled, everything will be accomplished. It is the sole, essential, necessary act. It is the protum and otum of existence. If you look at the 6 symptoms of surrender, it has that same principle that that one becomes, the devotional service, it's probably just to say, is the big hammer. With a little hammer you can try to drive a nail, but the big hammer, boom, the nail goes in immediately. So it's the one thing, devotional service, that solves everything, deals with everything. We have that faith that Krishna will give, is my only protector, that Krishna is the only maintainer, that we're completely dependent on the mercy of Krishna. If you look at those 6 symptoms of surrender, they have running through them as that theme, that exclusivity of service to Krishna. Let me just surrender to Krishna. Even the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things shall be added unto you. That's a fact, actually. So, to come to that point, there's so many, we don't have a whole lot of time. And we tend to Jarasandha was fighting with Krishna, 17 times? Was completely defeated. I think Prabhupada says he had to walk, everyone was killed on his side, he had to walk home, even his horse. Isn't it? In Krishna book? And Prabhupada's a wry sense of humor. Prabhupada says, unprecedented in military history. It's pretty far out. But in the same, so the events actually occurred. But we can also draw a lesson from them, or an analogy or allegory from them. We have made so many plans. We are making so many plans. And they all end in the exact same place. Nothing. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. We have to give up. Hopefully none of you have had a close to death experience. But you really do have absolutely no control. There's nothing you can do. Your body's going, everything's going. Finished. So, what do we actually, I was saying to the Hungarian brahmacharis the other day, Sankirtan devotees, there was a young man, 17 years old, moved into the temple, and 17 is under the legal age. So he had to stay with his parents at least till he was 18. And his parents are trying everything they could to crank up the old sense gratification machine. They were really trying to, blow some, get the embers to go again. And they're, bringing old girlfriends, and they bought him a ticket to Europe with his best friend, and they just, whatever you want, brand new Mercedes, whatever you want, you got it, no problem. Anything but Krishna consciousness. Of course, the logic of that is another thing, and everything the boy was disinterested in, everything the boy, they just couldn't rev up his material lust. And finally they took him to a wedding, And they thought, a beautiful bride and a handsome groom, and they're on the threshold of a joyous life together. I had a lady tell me one time when her son was a brahmachari, she said, but a wife takes all the bumps out of the road of life. Well, maybe. Knowledge, actually, are the shoes that help one traverse the path of life. Bhagavatam says that's what takes out the bumps of the road of life, is sublime knowledge. But anyway, so they have all their ideas. So they're there in the beautiful church, and everyone's happy. Literally, people crying tears of joy. The father's crying tears of what it cost, but everybody else is crying tears of joy, And the groom, the priest in the Western wedding says, I now pronounce you man and wife, husband and wife, until death do you part. And the young boy on the, witnessing this apparently joyous scene, which his parents were hoping would just spark his lust, turned to his father and said, just see, at death they have to part. And the father was completely frightened. He literally drove the boy right after the wedding home, dropped him off on the doorstep, knew me as the temple president, and said, you've completely spoiled him. There's nothing we can do. You might as well just take him, And that's how it became. They let him move in before he was 18. But what have we got to show for it, Guru Nanak tells, and Prabhupada quoted it. It's a nice story. Did your sound system blow out? Did the? Achha. So a Guru Nanak is going to speak some. He's traveling, and the tradition they speak at the local temple, and people gather and like that. So this one man invited his friend. He said, this sadhu is speaking. It'll be a very nice talk, and you should come. And the man was very rich. Now, there's very devotional rich people, and there's many foolish poor people. So it's not a statement exclusively on richness, being good or bad. But this man was very proud of his wealth, and a humbogi. So he said, I don't want to go. He said, these so-called sadhus, they go on, and then ultimately they ask for something, It's just a setup so that they can get some cows or land or money, and I'm not going. I've had it. I'm done with these guys. So his friend said, no. This is not that kind of sadhu. He's a very saintly person, and you'll like it. And knowing his friend's psychology, said, afterwards, anyway, there'll be a nice feast, green kachoris, nice laddu, you can come. So the guy thought, okay, I can sit through anything for an hour as long as I get a good meal afterwards. So he came. And Guru Nanak was speaking and finished his talk. And sure enough, of course, Guru Nanak had another purpose. What do they say? The face is the index of the mind. So he could understand what this guy was thinking. He called him over, and he said, I need your help. And the rich man thought, here it comes. I knew it. I'm sucker punched again. This guy's going to ask me for this, that, so many things. Why did I ever come? I could have bought a meal somewhere and avoided this. It's going to cost me. His mind was very frustrated. And Guru Nanak said, can you do me a favor? I've got this needle I use for sewing up my cloth, and I lose it all the time. And I'm just wondering if you could just keep this needle for me, and you just give it back to me in my next life. So the rich man had some intelligence, immediately thought, and what is the cost of a needle? Anyone know? In America, you can't even you have to buy a packet. You can't buy a single. In India, you can buy a single needle. Even in India, you can't buy? I bet you could. If you bargained, you could buy a single needle. Huh? You can, you see? And what is the cost of a single needle? You bought, but it's insignificant, right? You didn't have to finance it, right? Oh, 5 rupees, you got cheated. It's true. So anyway, but whatever the point is, it's practically nothing. So the man calculated. He said, wait a minute. I can't even keep an insignificant needle for my next life. What is all this stack of gold I've got? What am I? I can't take it with me. What's the dimwit relatives are going to inherit it? What am I going to get out of it? The Chanakya Pandit says the bee works very hard. They say busy as a bee to make a beeline. The busy bees always. They're not hanging around. You don't see them stop, smoke a beady. I mean, they're busy. They're fixed, you know? But who gets to enjoy the honey? The beekeeper comes, smokes them out, and the beekeeper gets the honey. So they work so hard, they don't even get to taste it. So similarly, we work so hard, ultimately the relatives, everyone else enjoys. We don't actually, it's so-called enjoyment. So we make so many plans. But Ante Narayana Smriti, at the time of death, what do we have other than the remembrance of Narayan? Everything is gone, everything's finished. So that exclusivity, that let me just give this life to Krishna, that will actually make me happy. The thing is that there's always a angst in this world, a residual, constant current of anxiety. You know, it's Vaikuntha, this is the opposite. This place is full of anxiety. It's always there because everything in this world is constantly mutable. Everything either hits a saturation point, and I've had enough. Or you get it all together and it goes. It's flickering. So there's always that anxiety throughout everything. Whereas there was a man in Armenia, a devotee, and he was a professor. He was teaching philosophy in some, university in the communist time. And he became a devotee. And he thought, I'm teaching so many things, so many different courses. Why don't I slip in a little Bhagavad Gita there, At least these kids will get something, so. So he began teaching, one course out of 20 on Bhagavad Gita. True story. KGB came, said, hey, you can't do this in the workers' paradise, this opiate of the people. Forget it. You keep doing this, we're going to throw you out of the university. So he thought, these poor kids are being cheated, and, I'm not going to, it's the truth. I'm not going to stop. Sure enough, they threw him out. He said, these kids in school, they're all enamored with they got so many things in their head, and they're young, and their bodies are full of energy, and He said, I'll teach at home. Let me teach at home. Then I can just teach, instead of all this other rubbish, I can teach Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Chaitanya, Bhagavatam. And it was working. So many people were coming, The barter system, they were giving some money or fixing his car, a dentist, everything was going on nicely. KGB came and said, hey, you can't be doing this. You keep doing it, we're going to throw you in jail. He said, what can I do? It's the truth. They threw him in jail. And that's when he thought, I was teaching all these students, they're enamored by youthful life and, visions of sense gratification floating around in their head. But people in jail, they're suffering. He said, this is a more qualified audience. It's actually, no, he was thinking he said, this is actually Krishna's mercy. He's thinking, this is Krishna's mercy. They're more sober. KGB came. He was giving classes in the prison. They said, wait a minute. They said, you can't do this. You don't stop. We're throwing you into the gulag. We're throwing you out into the Siberia, into the salt mines. He said, what can I do? It's the truth. He didn't stop. Very brave, actually. He didn't stop. So they sent him off to Siberia. He thought, this is Krishna's mercy. He thought, in the prison, in the jail, you've got all these common thugs and, burglars and bandits and murder. Just pretty low lives, a lot of low lives. But in the gulag, these are political prisoners. These are men of conscience, men and women of conscience. This is a much better audience. They're standing up for principle. They're a much better audience. He kept preaching. They came and said, you don't stop. He said, no more meat, no more cigarettes, no more vodka. He wasn't taking him anyway. He was, no problem, Okay, fine, So they were so fried, and finally they told him, they said, you don't stop this. We're taking away your prayer beads. He took away his japa mala. You know what he did? He took bread, that hard Russian bread, pushed it into balls, poked a hole through it with a straw, had them dry on the sun on the window ledge of his cell. They hardened into beads, took a strip off his bed, made 16, and was chanting Hare Krishna on his beads, They couldn't stop him, So the point is, And he was powerful preaching. And you've got people that are in there for 10 years sentence, but they've been in for 9, so they get out in a year, and they moved him all over the place. It was really one of the primary reasons that Krishna consciousness spread in those early days all over the Soviet Union. So although the man was suffering actually he was suffering, that's a fact. But because he was fixed in Krishna's service, he transcended the whole thing. So they have a saying in America, and it's a fact. You cannot change circumstances. You can change how you react to circumstances. We cannot control this material nature. If you haven't understood at least that much, wait till you're 63, my friends, 64. We are blown from pillar to post by events in this world. So many things happen. Completely beyond our control. Everything's beyond our control, really. The one thing we can control is how we react to things. You can't change the circumstances, but you can change how you react. So it's describing here this one-pointed intelligence. If one sees, all right, suppose, it's a common example, I'm going to give it again. If I go into the hospital, now what is the duty of the hospital? Is the duty of the hospital to make me comfortable? Hey, beautiful nurses, motorized bed, free cable. I was in the hospital recently, and they have in-hospital cafe. You can order whatever you want. By Krishna's grace, the devotees were bringing me prasadam, so I didn't have to deal with that mess, But, for the materialist, I can order from a menu. This is fantastic. Great. So then they come into your room after you've been there a few days and say, okay, Mr. Narayan, time for your shot. They come with a horse needle at you, And, we've got you scheduled for surgery, 50% survival rate, but hey, you can roll the dice, whatever it is. So, wait, I'm just here for the free cable and the pretty nurses, No, that's not the purpose of the hospital. What is the measure of the success of the hospital? That I wrote on my card, had a great time, stayed for 6 months, would have stayed longer, but insurance money ran out. Is that the success of a hospital? What's the success of a hospital? Yeah, they cure you and you get out. So it's all in how you see the thing. It's how we measure. And if we think, people offer prayers all the time. I offer my fair share of prayers. Try to. But what is the content and psychology of that prayer? I think it's the American Indians, or they were, but they actually throw their prayers into paper and then the ash goes up into the sky. I think they do that, the Buddhists do that, Tibetan Buddhists do that. Or here they tie their prayer to a tree. We've got so many, in Catholic, they light a candle and offer prayer, as if God needs some mailing system to understand, Although, sorry, I didn't see the ashes, so missed that prayer, sorry. Sorry about that one, But if we accept a priori, which is they all do state, a bona fide spiritual religious tradition, God is all powerful, God is all merciful. Anyone disagree with those? At least he has many more, he's, unlimited qualities. All powerful, all merciful. Now, if God is all powerful, it means he has the ability to solve your problem, isn't it? He can do it. Well, what about unanswered prayers? Wait a minute. Om Jagadish Hari. Jai Jagadish. Where's my new house and my new car and my house by the sea? What happened? I didn't get my, what happened? So it means that God is all powerful, but he's not all merciful. He could solve your problem, but he just didn't want to. Tough luck. Sorry for you. He's cruel and capricious, vindictive, spiteful, as you find in the Old Testament of the Bible? No. If God is all powerful and God is all merciful, then why didn't he satisfy my prayers? I wanted to fly when I was a kid. I with my brother, my father used to call it literally fool number 1, fool number 2. My brother had so many foolish ideas, which he had me test out. He didn't try it, but We saw some cartoon, and the kids, they tie the Superman with a cape, he's flying, My brother said, hey, I bet you we could do that. We, meaning me. I bet you we could do that. Let's try it. So, we figured if I get on the roof of the house, I run as fast as I can with a nice cape, hey, shh, I was quickly introduced to the law of gravity, So, but if I'd asked my mother, hey, can you get me a towel? I want to try to fly off the roof. Is she going to fulfill my desire? Whoa, wait a minute. My mom was very clever. I mean, she might have taken me to the, merry-go-round or Ferris wheel. I could have some experience of flying, but, within safe parameters. So the simple point is that Krishna already knows. He's in everyone's heart. Savashachaham hridi sannivishto matasmiti jnanam aponam cha. Krishna's in there. He knows already what we want, but he ultimately knows what we need. He is all-merciful, all-powerful, and he's helping us. So rather than, again, this one-pointed intelligence, instead of, I want this, and I want that, another, 17, 18 times like Jarasandha, no more foolish plans. Forget it, It's not going to solve anything. What is the one thing that's going to solve my problems? Is to get... If you're tied on a railway track, may this never happen, but just imagine you're tied on a railway track, right? Like the old movies, and the train is coming. And by the mercy of God, or chance, whatever you have faith in, a man walks along and finds you in your predicament. And you say, thank you, the train is coming, can you help me? He says, sure. It must be uncomfortable there. You want a pillow? Hey, you idiot. The train's coming. I've been calling for hours. Oh, your throat must be very hoarse. Here's some nice nimbu pani. I'll put some ice in it. A crook straw, because, you're on the track. So no, you idiot. Can't you hear the train? Yeah, that must be disturbing. Here's a nice Bose headset, No, get off the track. That's the only solution. Only a fool becomes comfortable in that situation. Yudhishthira Maharaj was asked by Yamash, what is the most amazing thing? Everyone around me dies, but I think I won't die. I think I forget his name, but it was an American poet. He said, yeah, and that's not what I'm asking, though. Thank you. Do you know the American poet? That's what I'm searching for. The American poet, he said, I knew that all men were mortal, but I always thought God would make an exception for me. So it's the same. It's the grand illusion that that everyone around us is dying. We think we're not going to die. Nobody goes with anything. We all think we're working so hard. So as I've tried to present, why not have the one pointed fixed intelligence? Just let me surrender to Krishna. He will provide what I have. What is it? Yokeshmam bahamyaham. He preserves what you have. He carries what you lack. He knows what I need. He knows what's best for me. I don't know what's best. Rather, I have made so many stupid choices. Oh, no, but this one is a good one. So that's a little hint on this one-pointed intelligence that actually solves all problems. I did want to talk, but we don't have time, about how that one-pointed intelligence is manifest. Okay, let's say this, and we have 2 minutes left. Don't think of the color red. Can you do that for me? Don't think of the color red. Don't think about it. How did that go? Ladies, how did that go? Work out all right? How about men? How did it go for you? Don't think about the color red. That's all you can. You're not focused, and you're focusing on blue. You're thinking, not red, blue, not red, blue, not red, blue. It doesn't work. It can only be supplanted. It has to be replaced. It has to be eclipsed by something. So we can't. Before I became a devotee, trying to become a devotee, I met a guy who was some kind of yogi, and he said, Western yogi, he said, I had samadhi on a Coke bottle for 2 hours. In other words, he filtered everything out, and all he could think of was the Coke bottle. That's, big deal, I mean, what is that content that will actually fully satisfy and eclipse all other things? And that is the order of one's spiritual master, the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Wherever you go, whoever you meet, instruct them in the science of Krishna. Let me, instead of making so many plans for myself, let me make plans how to deliver the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of Krishna. Let me deliver the conditioned souls. If we have that, Ekeha Kurunanda, what is it, Vyavasamak Buddh, that one-pointed fixed intelligence, that is the focus that's going to eclipse everything else and make us able to have that peaceful, happy, satisfied, meaningful, purposeful, one-pointed intelligence. Let me deliver Krishna consciousness to others. Let me become Krishna conscious. Let me deliver to others. That one-pointed intelligence solves everything for everybody. It's a miracle. Okay, we can end there. Thank you for sitting so patiently. I don't think we have time for questions because we have to end, isn't it? Now, and I've seen Prabhupada do this. Does anyone have a question on this verse and what we said? Not, a Stump the Swami question, who's the wife of the fourth Manu, forget it, Just on what we talked about today, or the verse itself, something that I didn't cover or whatever. Anyone have a question? Now I've scared you all off. Yes, Prabhu.
So you told that we have to get out of this material world.
You disagree? Go ahead, Prabhu.
Despite all this, they are not ready to give up their belongings or...
Not they. We. Me. Oh, you may be a liberated soul, but I'm... For me, a bird flies in the sky according to its ability, but go ahead. I'm sorry, what's your question?
Like we find in mentality, they are not ready to give up. Even the time comes, they are in their comfort and so on.
So what? Because the world's full of fools, you should be one too? We should not base our reality on what other people are doing. There's a famous American general, what is his name? Grant, I forget his name, Ulysses S. Grant. And when he took over the American army, American Civil War, he was fighting against the South. And the head of the South was a genius military guy, his name was Robert E. Lee. So when Grant first met with all of his generals, he said, so, what's the report? And they said, well, we think Robert E. Lee is going to do this, we think he's going to do that, we think he's going to go here, we think he's... After they were all saying what they think Robert E. Lee is going to do, Grant said, I don't give a damn what he's going to do, what are you going to do? So rather than living reactively, oh, this devotee's doing this devotee's doing that, what am I? The simple point is, I want to go back to Godhead. I want my life to have some meaning. I want to leave this world better than I found it. I want to give real help to people. So let me focus on that. What other people are doing, it doesn't matter. And frankly, I wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada in 1971 in St. Louis, and I was complaining. I'll be honest. I was complaining about, the temple president wasn't Maya, frankly. He used to come down for breakfast in his pajamas and complain about the cold prasadam, No morning program. Anyway, he's not around anymore. And I was complaining about so many things. And Prabhupada's response was, the first line in the letter was, it's very good that you're concerned about the spiritual advancement of your God brothers. That was the last thing on my list, frankly, It's what I should have been thinking about. I should have been thinking, how can I help? How can I make this situation better rather than criticizing? And Prabhupada told me how to make it better. He said that you can set the example. And we should end, Prabhupada's example. There's the sun and the wind, and they were arguing over who was stronger, the sun and the wind. And so they said, well, let's test it out. Field study. Some man's walking down with a coat. So they said, let's test who can get this man to take his coat off. Wind said, I'll go first. The wind blew and blew and blew and strong. What did the man do? Yeah, he pulled it. Even they blew him over. He was holding it tighter, tighter, tighter. What did the son do? The guy immediately took his coat off. So if we want to help, and we should, that should be our motive. If we want to help our God brothers and God sisters, the way to do that is by setting an example. Rather than, well, you're not doing, as soon as the temple president, to be fair, you've got to correct people. It's your job, and it's your service, really. You've got to correct people. No, you don't do it that way. Do it fine. That's one thing. But for us, if it's none of our business, leave it alone and set a better example. And by people will learn by better examples. So don't worry about what this one's doing, that one's doing. I got enough. I have a Niranjana Swami, one of my heroes. I was sitting with Niranjana Swami in Mayapur, and this devotee came up and was complaining about everybody and they started off with the usual target, the GBC. They go to the GBC, and then they throw in the temple president, and if you're married, it's your wife, or it's your husband, and then it just goes on. And this guy was complaining about everybody. I was thinking the only thing he hasn't faulted is the cow. And he said, and that is cow, I thought, I'm like, it's a perfect trifecta. This guy is actually, he's blasphemed everybody. It's a perfect storm, And he finally ran out of steam. And I was thinking, how is Niranjana Swami going to answer this guy? What is he going to say, You know what he said? He said, I see that you are expert at finding fault. He said, I think if you study your own heart, you will find sufficient subject matter. I thought, man, that's a jewel. Isn't that? That's so, and I'm constantly trying to remind myself, because I am a fault finder and a critic and envious, and I got all kinds of things going on. But if I wait a minute. Even Jesus says you see the speck in someone else's eye because you've got the mote in your eye, So rather than, we've got enough subject matter. Let me become Krishna conscious. And that certainly will fill up my time. And others will learn by that example, be inspired by that example. So that's the best way to approach it, at least for me. Okay, we should end there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.